Hello and welcome to reading summary and analysis of Macbeth Act 3, Scene 1. The first time that I read Macbeth, I remember being quite confused by Act 3. And if you're finding yourself in that situation, or if you're already a little bit confused, that's okay. Totally fine. We'll hopefully clear some things up today and learn a little bit more about it and why this is such an important part of the play, the dead center of the play. And as always, I'll be reading out of the Folger edition of Macbeth. There's a variety of different covers. This is kind of an old one, but variety of different covers. So if you want to follow along, I recommend getting this physical book because it's great and they're pretty affordable, but they also have the entire edition digitized. So you can click in the description there down below and follow along that way if you so desire. Okay. So at the beginning of Act 3, Scene 1, we get Banquo. Now, we haven't seen him on stage for a little bit, but here he is alone on stage giving a soliloquy, which is usually in Shakespeare a character talking to the audience. And Banquo is certainly doing that here. And what that means is that he can be completely open and honest. So let's see what he has to say. He says, "Thou hast it now, King, Cawdor, Glamis, all, as the weird women promised, and I fear thou playedst most foully for it." So right in that first sentence, we see that Banquo is suspicious of Macbeth. And why wouldn't he be? Right? He knows that Macbeth was told by the weird women, the witches at the beginning of the play, that he will become king. And now he is king, and Duncan was murdered in the Macbeth household. So yeah, obviously he's going to be at least a little bit suspicious. And we've seen little glimpses of Banquo's suspicion come through in the scene right before Macbeth kills Duncan, the dagger speech. Macbeth tells Banquo that he wants to talk about what happened earlier that day with the weird sisters and how they promised him some good fortune, and Banquo said that he only wants to increase his fortune and his honor if it means not sacrificing what he already has, basically going about things the right way, which seemed to be a little bit of a warning to Macbeth. And then also when Lady Macbeth faints after the murder is discovered, he says, "Look to the woman," or "look to the lady," I think is the line. And oftentimes that's played as Banquo being a little suspicious. Anyway, back to what he has to say here. He says, "Yet it was said it should not stand in thy posterity, but that myself should be the root and father of many kings. If there come truth from them as upon thee, Macbeth, their speeches shine, why, by the verities on thee made good, may not be my oracles as well, and set me up in hope." So Banquo is remembering that he also got, or maybe he's reminding us that he also got a prophecy from the witches that he would be the father of kings. And that's basically what that says. Some kind of difficult words in there, but basically this is just reminding us of what happened earlier in the play. But hush no more. And of course, Banquo can't talk because people are entering the stage, and you do not want to upset the king at any point in history if you are ruled by a king, and especially when the previous one was murdered suspiciously. You're going to be careful about what you say. So he can't say anymore because other people enter the stage. And it is Macbeth, Lady Macbeth, some attendants. "Here's our chief guest. If he had been forgotten, it had been as a gap in our great feast, and all thing unbecoming. Tonight we hold a solemn supper, sir, and I'll request your presence. Let your highness command upon me, to the which my duties are with a most indissoluble tie forever knit." So basically we have a party going on, and Banquo's being very proper in how he speaks to Macbeth, right? These are two people on equal terms at the beginning of the play, both thanes, both military commanders, both war heroes, and now, best friends often is how it's played. now Macbeth is above Banquo. And you can see that in the way they talk. But Macbeth is kind of being overly friendly here. He says that Banquo is the chief guest at this feast. And Lady Macbeth is kind of chiming in with that too. But then we get to some more interesting conversation. Macbeth says, "Ride you this afternoon, I, my good lord. We should else have desired your good advice, which still hath been both grave and preposterous in this day's council. But we'll take tomorrow. Is it far you ride? As far, my lord, as will fill up the time twixt this and supper. Go not my horse the better, I must become a borrower of the night for a dark hour or twain. Fail not our feast, my lord, I will not." So Macbeth is asking Banquo about his plans, about where he's going, how long he's going to be going. And Banquo says that he will have to become a borrower of the night. He will have to ride at night a little bit to get where he's going. And that's, of course, very dangerous at this time. There's a reason that Duncan and them stopped at Inverness at the Macbeth's castle after that opening battle. It's because getting all the way back to where he was going, to the royal palace or castle, was too far. It was too dangerous. You had to stop somewhere instead of riding through the night. So Banquo is going to have to do something a little dangerous, and Macbeth now knows it. Now Macbeth turns to politics. He says, "We hear our bloody cousins are bestowed in England and in Ireland, not confessing their cruel parricide, filling their hearers with strange invention." So that's a reference to Donalbain and Malcolm, who have fled to England and Ireland. And Macbeth says they're not confessing what they've done, which is kill their father. We, of course, know that's not true. Banquo suspects that's not true, but that's the official story that Macbeth is peddling. "But of that tomorrow, when therewithal we shall have cause of state craving us jointly. Hie you to horse, adieu, till you return at night. Goes Fleance with you? Ay, my good lord, our time does call upon's. I wish your horses swift and sure of foot, and so I do commend you to their backs. Farewell." So Banquo exits, and Macbeth also learns that Fleance, Banquo's younger son, usually played around 10 or 12, is also going with him on this journey that is going to take them away from the palace, and they will come back for this feast, but they'll have to ride through the night a little bit to get back in time. Then Macbeth says to the group as Banquo leaves, "Let every man be master of his time till 7 at night. To make society the sweeter welcome, we will keep ourselves till supper time alone. Well then, God be with you." Lords and all but Macbeth and the servant exit. So this is very interesting. Lady Macbeth is in this scene, right? But she's barely in this scene. She has like one or two lines, and they're kind of just like, we want you to come to dinner. And that's fine, except what we've noticed in the play is that Lady Macbeth typically outspeaks Macbeth in all their talk about killing Duncan and going through with that and getting the daggers put back to where the guards were, right? Like Lady Macbeth is the one kind of driving those scenes and keeping everything held together. And here, she barely says a word, and then Macbeth says to everyone except who he wants to talk to, which doesn't include her, to get out of there. And some productions, like the Patrick Stewart, Kate Fleetwood one, play that "God be with you" as very cruelly said. Like, why would you even be here still, Lady Macbeth? This is not the business of women here. And you don't have to play it that way, but it's an interesting choice because Macbeth is not consulting with his wife anymore. And we've seen how bumbling he's been so far in the play through all of this, but now he's gotten the confidence of a murderer, and we'll see that continue in this scene. So now he's talking to a servant, Sirrah, which is addressed to a lower member, right? Sir is above, Sirrah is below. "Sirrah, a word with you. Attend those men our pleasure. They are, my lord, without the palace gate. Bring them before us." Servant exits. Now we get Macbeth alone on stage. Now we get his soliloquy. And this is a lot longer than Banquo's. And again, he's talking to the audience. He says, "To be thus is nothing but to be safely thus." So, a little confusing, but to be thus, right, like king is what it means here, is nothing but to be safely king. So basically, there's no point in being the king unless you are safely the king. Our fears in Banquo stick deep, and in his royalty of nature reigns that which would be feared. 'Tis much he dares, and to that dauntless temper of his mind he hath a wisdom that doth guide his valor to act in safety. So we now know that he is suspicious of Banquo, right? This is partly because Banquo is the only one who knows what the witches said to him, except Lady Macbeth, and probably also because of what the witches said to Banquo, which we already talked about, and Macbeth will bring up here. There is none but he whose being I do fear, and under him my genius is rebuked, as it is said Mark Antony's was by Caesar. It's a little reference to a different Shakespeare play. He chid the sisters when first they put the name of king upon me and bade them speak to him. Then, prophet-like, they hailed him father to a line of kings. Upon my head they placed a fruitless crown and put a barren scepter in my grip, whence to be wrenched with an unlineal hand, no son of mine succeeding. So here you see him reflect on what was said to Banquo, but then also kind of project into the future, that because of what the witches said, because of Banquo's existence, Macbeth can't safely be king, and certainly his children can't be king. Right now, Macbeth doesn't have a son, most likely, but we know he's lost a son. He was, or at least lost a child. I don't know if it specifies that it was a son or daughter. But we know that that Macbeth was a father at one point. I suppose still is a father, even though the child's been lost. So this fatherhood is on his mind. And maybe it's just being like, overly power hungry, as kings tended to be. It wasn't enough just to be the most powerful and the richest and the most cared for person in the country. You also had to make sure that your lineage was. But who amongst us doesn't want a better life for our children than we've had, or at least as good of a life as we've had? So I can kind of see where Macbeth is going here, even if it's very twisted form of fatherhood, right? Because of what he's about to set up. Anyway, he says, if it be so, for Banquo's issue here meaning child, offspring, have I filled my mind. For Banquo's issue have I filled my mind. For them, the gracious Duncan, have I murdered. Put rancors in the vessel of my peace only for them, and mine eternal jewel given to the common enemy of man, to make them kings, the seeds of Banquo kings. So the common enemy of man would be the devil, and the eternal jewel would be the soul, right? So Macbeth is really worked up here to say, like, I've given up everything. I've given up my soul for Banquo's kids to be kings, really? Rather than so, come fate into the list and champion me to the utterance. So list here means field of combat. So he's challenging fate, which is really an interesting shift for Macbeth. He's used fate as justification for doing everything he's done, right? The witches, through, have told him his fate to become king. So Duncan had to die so he would become king. But now the witches say Banquo's children will be king, but that isn't, aligning to Macbeth's plans. So therefore, fate is now an enemy as opposed to an ally. Who's there? Servant and two murderers enter. Now, they are called murderers in the folio, right? The first printings we have of this play, they're referred to as first and second murderer, their character name. But the lines that we're about to read suggest that they are people who are down on their luck, who might be able to be convinced of becoming a murderer. They're poor. They've had a rough life. And Macbeth is going to try and leverage their instability in life and also threaten them to get them to become murderers. They're not necessarily people who have a history of murdering individuals. I think the only person in the scene with that is Macbeth. Now, go to the door and stay there till we call. Servant exits. Now talking to these two men. Was it not yesterday we spoke together? It was so, please your highness. Well then, now have you considered of my speeches? Know you that it was he and the times past which held you so under fortune, which you thought had been our innocent self? The he there would be Banquo. So Shakespeare is speeding things along for us, right? He tells us in just a few words that there's already been a conversation, and you thought I was the reason that your life was so difficult, but we actually know now that it was Banquo. So this is something Macbeth has already set up, right? Or been working on. He's just trying to get it across the line here. This I made good to you in our last conference, passed in probation with you, how you were born in hand, how crossed the instruments, who wrought with them, and all things else that might to half a soul into a notion crazed say, thus did Banquo. You made it known to us. So yes, Banquo is the reason your lives are terrible. We already went through that. Now what are we going to do about it? That's the current situation we're in. I did so and went further, which is now our point of second meeting. Do you find your patience so predominant in your nature that you can let this go? Are you so gospeled to pray for this good man and for his issue, whose heavy hand hath bowed you to the grave and beggared yours forever? So it's interesting, right? He's asking them questions. Do you find your patience so predominant in your nature? Are you so patient that you can let all this go? Are you so gospeled that you would pray? Like, are you such a good Christian that you would pray for this good man who's ruined your life? And look what they answer with. They say, we are men, or sorry, the first murderer says, we are men, my liege. That is a huge theme of the play, right? Lady Macbeth leveraged Macbeth's insecurities about his manhood to convince him to go through with the murderer, right? And here the murderers are, well, we are men, you know, and Macbeth is going to call that into question. Well, if you're men, you wouldn't let someone walk all over you. So we are men, my liege. I, in the catalogue, you go for men as hounds and greyhounds, mongrels, spaniels, curs, sows, water rugs, and demi-wolves are all clept all by the name of dogs. So that's a long list of dogs, right? Hounds, greyhounds, mongrels, spaniels, curs, sows, water rugs, demi-wolves, right? All of them are technically called dogs, but they are not all the same dog. So yeah, technically you're a man, but are you going to be a demi-wolf? Are you going to be a greyhound, or are you going to be a cur? And cur is an insult. You would call someone that, much like a modern swear word that also refers to a dog. It's an insulting thing to say to someone. And Macbeth continues and says, the valued file distinguishes the swift. Valued file, I had to look at my edition to help me out here, a list that evaluates each breed. So the evaluation of each dog, right? The valued file distinguishes the swift, the slow, the subtle, the housekeeper, the hunter, every one according to the gift which bounteous nature hath in him closed, whereby he does receive particular addition from the bill that writes them all alike, and so of men, right? So kind of repeating the theme we already talked about here, they're all technically dogs. They're not all the same dog, though. There's a slow, there's a fast, there's a subtle, there's a swift, there's a hunter, right? Same thing with men. Now, if you have a station in the file, not in the worst rank of manhood, say it, and I will put that business in your bosoms whose execution takes your enemy off, grapples you to the heart and love of us, who wear our health but sickly in his life, which in his death were perfect. Right? So he says, if you're real men, do what I'm about to, tell you to do, and you'll get rid of your enemy. Now, Banquo is probably not their enemy, but the king says Banquo's their enemy, so, Banquo's kind of their enemy. And not only will it get rid of your enemy, it will also grapple you to Macbeth's heart, right? It'll put you in a good place with the king. Second murderer says, I am one, my liege, whom the vile blows and buffets of the world hath so incensed that I am reckless what I do to spite the world. And I another, so weary with disasters, tugged with fortune, that I would set my life on any chance to mend it or be rid on it. So both of them say we're we're desperate. We are angry at the world. We are in a terrible, desperate situation. Macbeth now. Both of you know Banquo was your enemy. True, my lord. So is he mine. Sorry, one second. So is he mine, and in such bloody distance that every minute of his being thrust against my nearest of life. And though I could with barefaced power sweep him from my sight and bid my will avouch it, yet I must not. For certain friends that are both his and mine, whose love I may not drop, but wail his fall, who I myself struck down. So Macbeth's like, I also hate Banquo, and I would kill him right now, but I can't, because we have mutual friends. So I'm going to pretend that I'm very sad when he dies, but I want him out of here. And thence it is that I to your assistance do make love, masking the business from the common eye for sundry weighty reasons, right? Masking the business, meaning covering up the business of murder from the common eye, from the general knowledge. So basically, they've been commissioned to kill Banquo. And whether or not they actually believe Macbeth when he says Banquo is your enemy and this is going to put you in good favor with me, that's kind of irrelevant, because Macbeth is all powerful in his society. And if he's asked these two people to murder Banquo, they need to go through with it, or they're probably not walking out of here alive. Not saying they should go through with it, but he's put them in a very difficult situation, right? Obviously, they shouldn't go through with it. It's still murder, and it's about to become even worse with what Macbeth says to them next. Second murderer says, "We shall, my lord, perform what you command us, though our lives," first murderer, but then he gets cut off when Macbeth says, "Your spirit shine through you. Within this hour at most, I will advise you where to plant yourselves, acquaint you with the perfect spy of the time, the moment on it, for it must be done tonight. And something from the palace always thought that I require a clearness. And with him, to leave no rubs nor blotches in the work, Fleance, his son, that keeps him company, whose absence is no less material to me than is his father's, must embrace the fate of that dark hour. Resolve yourselves apart. I'll come to you anon." So not only have they been commissioned to kill Banquo, they've also been commissioned to kill Fleance, who's of course a young child, right? 10, maybe 12 years old. So this is a terrible situation they've been put in. And Macbeth is the engineer of all of it, right? He's killed Duncan, he's killed the guards, and now he's ordering the death of Banquo and Banquo's son Fleance. Murderers say, "We are resolved, my lord. I'll call upon you straight. Abide within." Murderers exit. Macbeth says, "It is concluded. Banquo, thy soul's flight, if it find heaven, must find it out tonight." And that is Act 3, Scene 1. So really kicks off the act, and you see the transformation of Macbeth from really completing here, from a character who is so scared of the thought of murdering his king, who then had to be talked into it by Lady Macbeth, and is now not only killing the guards to cover it up, but jumping like 5 steps ahead, right? Banquo is suspicious of him, but there's no direct threat to Macbeth right now, but that doesn't matter. He's going to kill his former best friend and his best friend's son, just to cover up any loose ends. So he's gone full dictator here, murderous dictator. And it's only the midway point of the play. A lot more to go from here. So I hope that was helpful for you. If you're still around, I'd love to talk to you about our partnership with Field Notes. So I talk about them all the time because they are one of the things keeping this channel going right now. So in the description, you can see a link to pick up any Field Notes you want with a 10% off code, which is great. They're pretty inexpensive to begin with. Yeah, I love these things. Love these for notes. I'm using their Chicago edition right now, which is a bit of a larger notebook. It's kind of a very unusual size. You don't see it I don't know ever have seen a size like this, but I love it. It's a grid pattern, so I'm using mine to start to plan out some bookshelves that I want to build. But there's also smaller editions. Some of them are very collectible. They're kind of like Pokemon cards for people who love stationery. There's a huge community on Facebook that I'm a part of. And yeah, some are very collectible. Some of the old ones sell for a lot of money. But I personally really like opening them up and filling them. So this is their newest edition that'll be around for at least a couple more weeks till it sells out pretty quickly, I'm sure, which is all inspired by a new book by Robert McFarlane on rivers, who's a wonderful nature nonfiction writer. And if you subscribe and get quarterly deliveries of their newest field notes, come with some cool stuff too. So this one has this amazing map of the Mississippi from way back in the day, which is mentioned in the book. And yeah, super exciting. Love field notes. If you are at all interested in them, using that link in the description gets you 10% off. Really helps out the channel. Ad revenue for these videos can be kind of hit or miss. For sure, it's not the easiest way to make money on YouTube talking about poetry and plays. But it's all I really want to talk about on YouTube. So I'm glad I get to do it. And field notes is a huge part of, you know, making it worthwhile and supplementing it so that I can keep doing it. So hopefully it's helping some other people out as well. So check those out in the description if you're interested. And even if you're not, thank you so much for being here and for watching. And I'll hope to bring you scene 2 of Act 3 pretty soon. Thanks and happy reading.